Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare wheat pennies. These classic coins hold an incredible history, and some are worth millions. So today, we are gonna uncover the rarest varieties, their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. Top 1 today, we're diving into the rich history, hidden secrets, and astonishing value behind one of the most intriguing coins in American numismatics. The 1917 Wheat Penny. At first glance, this coin might seem like just another old copper penny. But don't be fooled by its humble size or age. This little coin carries with it over 100 years of American history, and for the right collector, it could be worth far more than you could imagine. So grab your magnifying glass and settle in, because this isn't just a penny. It's a potential gold mine. Let's start with a bit of history. The 1917 Wheat Penny was minted during a fascinating time in the United States. The world was deep in the chaos of World War I, and America had just entered the conflict that same year. Patriotism was high, industries were booming, and every piece of currency played a role in the economy of a nation preparing for global battle. Pennies like the 1917 wheat cent were circulating widely, changing hands in cities, farms, and factories across the country. Now, this coin is part of the beloved Lincoln Wheat Penny series, which ran from 1909 to 1958. These pennies featured President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a first for U.S. coins at the time, and two wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, symbolizing prosperity and agriculture. But while millions of these pennies were minted, only a tiny percentage survived in exceptional condition. And an even smaller number contain unique errors that make them incredibly valuable to collectors today. What exactly makes the 1917 Wheat Penny so special? One major factor is rarity and high grade. Most of these coins were heavily circulated, tossed around for decades, and worn down by time. That means finding one with sharp detail, original red or red-brown luster, and no signs of damage is extremely difficult. Mint state versions of this coin, especially those graded MS65 or higher, are the crown jewel for collectors. But beyond condition, there's another layer to this coin's value: errors. And the 1917 Wheat Penny has one error that makes it stand out above the rest: the famous double die obverse. This error occurred during the minting process when the coin die, essentially the stamp that impresses the design, accidentally received a doubled impression. As a result, some 1917 wheat pennies show noticeable doubling in the inscriptions on the front of the coin, particularly in the date 1917 and the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." This doubling isn't subtle, it's clearly visible, and collectors go absolutely wild for it. Why? Because true double die errors are extremely rare. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity equals value. Now here's something really exciting. If you're lucky enough to find a 1917 wheat penny with this doubling, especially in high condition, you're holding something incredibly valuable. These coins don't just go for a few $100s. They don't just fetch a couple thousand. The market for rare error coins like this has skyrocketed in recent years as more and more collectors compete for fewer and fewer pristine examples. And here's the thing: these coins might already be in circulation. They could be sitting unnoticed in someone's collection, stored in a dusty attic, hiding in an old coin album passed down through generations. That's why it's so important to take a second look at every wheat penny you come across, because you never know when you might be holding a historical treasure in the palm of your hand. Collectors love the 1917 wheat penny not just for its rarity, but for the story it tells. A coin struck during the Great War, with the stoic face of Lincoln on one side and a classic American design on the other. Add to that a rare minting error and exceptional condition, and you have one of the most coveted pennies in American numismatic history. Now the question you've all been waiting for. Just how much can a 1917 wheat penny be worth if it's in the right condition, with that rare and desirable doubling error? Well, brace yourself, because one of these beauties, verified and graded at a high mint state with a strong double die obverse, has been sold to a serious collector for a life-changing amount of $83,000. That's right, $83,000. For one penny. It's the kind of story that makes coin collecting so exciting. A piece of change, something we take for granted every day, can turn out to be a historic artifact worth tens of thousands of dollars. You just have to know what to look for. So, if you've got old coins lying around, especially wheat pennies from the early 1900s, don't ignore them. Check the dates, inspect for doubling, and most importantly, preserve them carefully. You could be sitting on something amazing. Top 2, we're talking about a humble but powerful piece of history, the 1937 wheat penny from the United States of America. Now, let's be honest, how many of us have looked at an old penny and thought, it's just 1 cent. What could it possibly be worth? But in the world of coin collecting, looks can be deceiving. This coin might be small, but the story it tells and the value it could carry might just blow your mind. The 1937 wheat penny was minted during a time of hope and recovery. America was still working its way out of the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was in office, and his New Deal was reshaping the nation. Jobs were being created, confidence was slowly returning, and coins like the 1937 penny were being spent in corner stores, train stations, movie theaters, and lunch counters. This coin passed through the hands of everyday Americans trying to rebuild their lives. But what sets the 1937 wheat penny apart isn't just the year it was minted. It's what happened during the minting process, and what didn't happen. That has collectors buzzing even today. This penny belongs to the iconic Lincoln Wheat Cent series, which ran from 1909 to 1958. It features Abraham Lincoln's bust on the obverse, symbolizing leadership and unity during trying times. On the reverse are those familiar wheat stalks, simple, elegant, and symbolic of American agriculture and resilience. Millions of 1937 pennies were produced. In fact, if you have an old coin collection from your grandparents or have visited a flea market or antique shop, there's a decent chance you've seen one. But, and this is where things get exciting, not all 1937 pennies are created equal. Among these millions of coins are a few mysterious rarities that have earned legendary status among collectors. We're talking about mint errors, and the 1937 wheat penny has some truly wild and valuable examples. One of the most exciting errors to look out for is the double die error, where elements of the coin's design, particularly the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust," appeared doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. These doubled letters are not just quirky features, they are markers of a minting anomaly, and collectors absolutely love them. Another rare error involves the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin isn't properly aligned in the press, leading to a coin where part of the design is missing or shifted. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, the coin can become increasingly rare and desirable. The more dramatic the error, and the better the coin's condition, the more collectors are willing to pay. But wait, there's more. There are also planchet flaws, lamination errors, and even repunched mint marks that have been discovered on 1937 pennies. These are all unintentional mistakes made by the U.S. Mint. But to collectors, these aren't flaws, they're treasures. And then there's condition, perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. Most 1937 wheat pennies have seen heavy use. They were passed around, dropped, rubbed down, and exposed to decades of wear and tear. So when a coin from this era turns up in mint state condition, with a bright red luster and no signs of damage, its value skyrockets. Collectors are constantly searching for these high-grade examples, especially if they feature one of the rare mint errors. And the competition to own one of these pieces is fierce, because let's face it, a perfect 1937 penny with a rare error is more than just a coin. It's a piece of history frozen in time. Now imagine this. You're at a garage sale, flipping through an old box of coins. You spot a wheat penny, and something about the date catches your eye. You take a closer look, and there it is, a visible doubling in the date, maybe even a slight off-center strike. It's in excellent condition. And then it hits you. This isn't just a common penny. You might just be holding a small fortune in the palm of your hand. Oh, here's the big question. Just how much could a rare, error-filled, mint state 1937 wheat penny actually be worth? Well, one of these extraordinary coins, graded professionally and authenticated with a well-known mint error, once sold for a breathtaking total of $80,000. Yes, you heard that right. $80,000 for a single penny. And that, my friends, is the magic of coin collecting. Every coin has a story. Some whisper, some shout. But the 1937 Wheat Penny sings a song of history, mystery, and incredible value. So, if you've got a collection hiding in a drawer, or you stumble across an old penny at a market or estate sale, look closely, because one small copper coin from 1937 could change your life. Top 3 were unlocking the story of a small copper coin with a big legacy, the 1940 Wheat Penny from the United States of America. Now don't be fooled by its common appearance. This little coin carries more history, mystery, and potential value than you might expect. So if you're a collector, a history lover, or someone who's ever dreamed of finding a hidden fortune in plain sight, listen closely, because this coin might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. Let's go back to the year 1940. The world was standing on the edge of chaos as World War II intensified across Europe. The United States hadn't yet entered the war, but tensions were rising and the country was preparing in every way. And during this critical year, the U.S. Mint struck millions of 1-cent coins, small copper pieces that quietly became part of everyday American life. These were the classic Lincoln Wheat Pennies. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse of the coin features Lincoln's dignified portrait, while the reverse displays 2 stalks of wheat encircling the words 1 cent and United States of America. Simple, yet bold, a design that came to represent American perseverance and productivity during some of the toughest years in history. The 1940 Wheat Penny may seem ordinary, but in the world of coin collecting, certain versions of this coin are anything but. You see, not all 1940 pennies were created equal. While millions were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, some carried unusual traits and errors that make them incredibly valuable today. Let's talk about those errors, because they're the real secret behind why some 1940 pennies are worth far more than just 1 cent. First up, the double die error. This rare phenomenon happens when the die used to strike the coin gets slightly misaligned during production. As a result, letters and numbers on the coin, especially in the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date 1940, appear slightly doubled. To the average person, it might just look like a printing smudge, but to trained eyes and collectors, it's a jackpot. Then there's the off-center strike, another highly collectible error. This occurs when the coin isn't properly seated in the minting press, causing the design to be struck off to one side. Depending on how off-center it is, these coins can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One of the more fascinating and hard-to-find errors is the repunched mint mark, where the small letter below the date, such as D for Denver or S for San Francisco, was punched into the die more than once, slightly out of place. This mistake can only be spotted with a magnifying glass or loupe, but collectors absolutely love these rare quirks because they make a coin stand out from millions of others. But errors aren't the only thing driving up the value. Condition is king when it comes to coins. Most 1940 pennies were passed from hand to hand, tossed into pockets, purses, and piggy banks, slowly losing their sharpness and shine. But every once in a while, a coin surfaces in uncirculated or mint state condition, meaning it looks almost exactly as it did the day it left the mint. These well-preserved coins retain their original copper-red luster and sharp, crisp details. And if you combine that flawless condition with one of the rare minting errors, that's when things get really exciting. Just imagine, you're going through an old coin collection inherited from a relative, or browsing a flea market and spot a 1940 Wheat Penny with a strange doubling or odd mint mark. You look closer and realize it's nearly flawless. That's not just lucky, that's potentially life-changing. Collectors and numismatists from around the world are constantly hunting for these rare combinations, error plus excellent condition, and the competition is fierce. Auctions for rare 1940 Wheat Pennies have seen enthusiastic bidding wars, and the final hammer price is often jaw-dropping. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Just how much could one of these rare, high-grade, error-filled 1940 Wheat Pennies be worth? Hold on tight, because one such coin, professionally graded, with a dramatic error and preserved in nearly perfect condition, has sold for an astonishing $79,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $79,000 for a single penny. This is why coin collecting is more than just a hobby. It's an adventure, a mystery, a chance to hold a piece of history in your hand that could also be a hidden treasure. So, whether you're a serious collector or just starting out, always keep your eyes open. Check every coin carefully. Pay attention to the little details. Because you never know when you might uncover a forgotten fortune hiding in a coin that millions have overlooked. Top 4, we're taking a closer look at one of the most iconic and fascinating coins in American numismatic history, the 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it might just look like a simple copper coin. But if you look a little closer, you'll discover a world of mystery, craftsmanship, and potential value hiding within this humble 1-cent piece. So grab a magnifying glass, get comfortable, and listen carefully, because the story of the 1941 Wheat Penny is one that just might change the way you look at pocket change forever. Let's start with a bit of background. The year was 1941. The United States had not yet entered World War II, but the winds of war were already sweeping across the globe. This was a pivotal time in American history. Factories were gearing up for wartime production, communities were uniting in patriotic duty, and even the coins in circulation were beginning to reflect the era's urgency and change. Among them was the Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that had already become a staple of American life since its first release in 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse of the coin bears the familiar and noble portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, the first real person to be featured on a U.S. coin. And on the reverse, 2 stylized wheat ears curving gracefully along the edges, symbolizing America's agricultural roots and strength. In 1941, the mint struck hundreds of millions of these pennies in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, with a D, mint mark; and San Francisco with an S. They were meant for mass circulation. But here's the twist: not all 1941 pennies were created equal. And that's where things get really interesting. Among those millions of coins, a small number were born with mistakes, minting errors that make collectors go wild even decades later. These errors are what turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary treasure. Let's talk about one of the most sought-after errors: the double die. Imagine the coin's design being stamped twice, ever so slightly off from the first strike. The result? A ghostly, overlapping image, most noticeable on the date, or the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty." This isn't something you'll see every day, and it's definitely not something to overlook if you ever come across one. These double die errors can dramatically boost the coin's value, especially when they're in mint or near mint condition. Then there are off-center strikes, another fan favorite in the world of coin errors. These happen when the blank metal planchet isn't lined up correctly during the minting process, resulting in a coin that's partially blank or oddly shaped. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. Some of these 1941 wheat pennies have off-center strikes as much as 50%, creating unique, one-of-a-kind collector's items. You may also stumble across repunched mint marks, which happen when a mint mark is punched more than once in slightly different locations. A 1941 D penny or a 1941 S penny with this repunched feature is highly collectible, and the sharper the doubling and the better the condition, the more coin lovers are willing to pay. Speaking of condition, let's talk about grade, because this might be the most crucial factor of all. Most wheat pennies from 1941 spent decades in circulation. They were passed through countless hands, jingled in pockets, stored in jars, and naturally suffered wear and tear. So, finding one in pristine condition, what collectors call uncirculated or even mint state, is rare. These coins maintain their original shine, detail, and luster. The edges are sharp, Lincoln's face is clear, and every wheat stalk is crisp. Now imagine this: a 1941 wheat penny that not only has a rare minting error but is also in near-perfect condition. That's the golden combination. That's what collectors dream of. And when these types of coins hit the market, especially in certified, graded slabs, they can fetch unbelievable prices. It's a good reminder that the value of a coin isn't just in what it is, but in what happened to it during its creation, and how well it's been preserved over the decades. So whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who just inherited a box of old coins from a grandparent, it pays, literally, to check carefully. Get a magnifying glass. Look for doubling, misalignment, or anything that looks just a little off. You might be holding on to something far more valuable than it appears. And now, for the moment everyone's been waiting for: how much can one of these rare and exceptional 1941 wheat pennies be worth? Well, one such coin, with a rare mint error and preserved in exceptional condition, has sold for an astonishing $77,000. Yes, you heard that right. $77,000 for a single penny. A penny that most people would overlook, toss into a drawer, or spin without a second thought. This is the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about metal and dates. It's about stories. It's about history you can hold in your hand. And sometimes, it's about a small copper coin turning into a small fortune. Top 5, we're diving into the incredible story of the 1944 United States Wheat Penny, a coin that's not just rich in copper, but overflowing with history, hidden secrets, and the potential for serious value. This isn't just any ordinary coin. The 1944 Wheat Penny carries a legacy forged in the heart of World War II. And believe it or not, this small piece of metal might be worth far more than you could ever imagine. If you know exactly what to look for, let's set the stage. The year was 1944. The world was at war. Factories across America were running around the clock, churning out equipment, vehicles, and supplies to support the Allied forces. Everything, absolutely everything, was being rationed and repurposed for the war effort, and that included materials used to make coins. Now here's where things get really interesting. In 1943, just a year before our featured penny was minted, the U.S. government made pennies out of steel coated with zinc instead of the usual copper. Why? Because copper was desperately needed for ammunition and wartime machinery. Those 1943 steel cents became an iconic wartime adaptation, but they weren't perfect. People confused them with dimes, they rusted quickly, and they jammed vending machines. In 1944, the U.S. Mint made the decision to return to copper coins. But not just any copper. These were made using recycled shell casings collected from battlefields. That's right, the very metal used in the war effort found its way back home, reminted into coins like the 1944 Wheat Penny. Every time you hold one, you're literally holding a piece of history in your hands. But as with many coins from this period, some very rare mistakes, known as minting errors, made it into circulation. And it's these errors that turn an ordinary penny into an incredibly rare and valuable collector's dream point. One of the most famous errors to watch for is the 1944 steel cent. You heard that right. Even though steel was only used in 1943, a small number of steel planchets, blanks from the previous year, accidentally made their way into the 1944 production line. These coins look silver or gray instead of the reddish copper color, and they're extremely rare. In fact, only a few dozen are known to exist across all mint marks. If you find one, you've hit the numismatic jackpot. But even within the regular 1944 copper pennies, there are other kinds of mint errors that make collectors pay attention. One highly desirable error is the double die. This occurs when the coin's design is accidentally struck twice, slightly misaligned. The result is a ghostly doubling effect, often visible on the date, the lettering like Liberty, or the motto, "In God We Trust." These double die errors can fetch a premium, especially when they're crisp and easy to spot. Then you've got off-center strikes, which are exactly what they sound like. The coin is stamped off-center, sometimes showing part of the blank planchet. The more dramatic the off-center strike and the clearer the date, the more collectors will pay. And don't forget about repunched mint marks, when the mint mark was stamped more than once in slightly different positions. These are rare, subtle, and often missed by the untrained eye, but to a serious coin collector, they can make a big difference in value. But what really sets any 1944 Wheat Penny apart is its condition. A coin that's been passed through countless hands, scraped across surfaces, and rubbed smooth might still be historically interesting, but its monetary value will be limited. On the other hand, a 1944 Wheat Penny that has been carefully preserved in mint state condition, with sharp details, clear luster, and minimal contact marks, can be worth a small fortune. Add a rare minting error to that pristine condition, and you've got a coin that collectors will battle over at auction. And here's the thing, you never know where one of these treasures might turn up. People have found rare pennies tucked away in old piggy banks, handed down in family heirlooms, or even hiding in plain sight in coin jars. That's the magic of collecting. It turns ordinary moments into thrilling discoveries. So, how much can one of these special 1944 Wheat Pennies really be worth? If you happen to have a 1944 penny made from a leftover steel planchet, or a beautifully preserved copper coin with a striking mint error, you're in for something extraordinary. Because one of these rare 1944 Wheat Pennies has sold for an eye-opening, jaw-dropping amount. And that amount was $77,000. That's right. $77,000 for a single penny. A coin that once bought a piece of candy could now buy you a car, a home down payment, or even change your life. So take a second look at your old change. Dig through those dusty jars and forgotten drawers. Because the next big discovery in the world of coin collecting might be sitting right in your hand. Thanks for joining us today on this journey into numismatic history. If you love rare coins, hidden treasures, and the thrill of the hunt, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and tap the bell so you never miss our next exciting story. There's a world of value out there, sometimes hidden in the smallest places. Happy collecting, and good luck in your search for the next great coin.